Death Stranding in 2026 is an interesting experience. It's Kojima's first auteur debut in a sense in a post-Konami world. It's also a game about a post-Trump and Brexit world, one where online interconnection is the default mode of connection. The game is essentially about expanding that network that offers digital reciprocation, which is done through Sam Porter Bridges, whose name is just on the nose as every other character here in the game. It follows his task to find his sister on the other coast of America, which is essentially uninhabitable due to the titular Death Stranding, a mysterious extinction event that brings BTs, or rather ghosts, into the world that can drag anyone into their dimension. As Sam starts on the east coast of the United States, he makes deliveries to different cities and locations while connecting them to the network, bringing people together, expanding the network as he uncovers more of the plot and pushes further west. With all this being said, it's worth noting that this is also a video game, which means it's about a lot of things, an overwhelming amount of things, honestly. But let's step away from the cinematics and get down into its play. Video games in this modern era of Gen 7 to today, let's say, often feel as directed to give players a livable, explorable world that's just as expensive as our own. Look no further than Metal Gear 5, the last game directed with Kojima before Death Stranding. Its massive world, much like with, say, your Skyrim, is easily traversed where combat and enemy engagement is prioritized before actual engagement with movement. There is also little doubt putting Metal Gear Solid 5 in this type of open world left such a heavy burden on everyone working on the title that the follow-up would essentially always be a reaction to it. Much like with Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 5, Death Stranding leaves Sam in a rather open-ended world, but the differences start here. Enemies are few and far between, and they are designated to specific areas and are easily handled and avoided as well, where killing them only causes BTs and as such is to be avoided at all costs. The core gameplay is truly walking, climbing, running, and driving in its world, which, if you can't tell, is pretty divisive enough today. Many players in games historically value winning over opponents, engaging combat, violence, or championship above all else. It's how games have been designed for decades. Rather than an opponent or a direct antagonist, Death Stranding's antagonist is arguably between existentialism, death itself, or the environment. Let's put a pin on the former two and continue focusing on the environment. Since the gameplay is the environment, how does it actually feel? Well, it's incredible. It's essentially gamifying the human, or rather the condition of all living land animals, even fish, kind of. Every delivery, every step, every rock, every shift of weight is requiring active thinking and problem solving. It's ridiculous how amazing the controls feel, how it shifts to every situation and movement that Sam has. Not to mention using your scanner reveals solid ground and obstacles along the way to help you course out your path. If you have ever been hiking or walked essentially anywhere, it quickly becomes uncanny how our everyday traversal judgment making is applied in the game. In fact, in between starting Death Stranding this year and finishing it this year, I went from Florida to California where I walked up Mount Sutro. I was essentially getting flashbacks to the scanner of Death Stranding, assessing foot placement and solid ground, planning out my path and movement. Now, returning to Death Stranding, what we have is an active puzzle game that requires decision making on the spot, or for more deliberate players, planning out and coursing a path. It's an open-ended system of engagement, not even mentioning the specifics of the delivery items you will need to account for. When the environment, BTs, and other factors come into play, it can feel incredibly grueling. Though finally crossing those rivers, navigating through enemies, and summiting mountains brings you to a euphoric state of traveling down the environment. Free from fighting gravity and where the peacefulness kicks in, it's a constant state of warning you through the environment that was just seemingly standing in your way. Just like with combat in centered video games, it's a dance of action and reaction. What's the actual difference between quickly stopping yourself from falling and perfect dodging in Bayonetta? I mean, come on, both gives you a score at the end of the level, depending on your success and understanding of the system. The open environment feels so much more alive than in most games due to its relation to us. It's a neutral force in the game. In a game sense, it's both punishing and forgiving. It's essentially just our own world. with all of the vastness and miles of separation from others we seek to connect with. It isn't an active participant of the plot. We simply apply our values and judgments to it dependent on our own needs and the position. It changes with us just as frequently as we assess it in-game. The Earth is unhuman. It's completely unconscious of our existence and our place alongside it. All of the downtime that we have, the alone time and solitude that we have within the environment allows us to take in the dialogue and the themes that we commonly see from the game. It's a stark juxtaposition between how we play and how we live our lives. So, humanity can be completely killed off. That's a plot point somewhat present in a lot of games, and in this lies the antagonist of Death Stranding. Amelie is an extinction entity that can end all life, who happens to be Sam's sister. We also learn that she was behind the actions of Higgs, a character who played a large role within the plot as an antagonist seemingly acting out on his own, where he was just directed by Amelie. In all actuality, his role seems major, but it's more in an extension of Amelie, who's a human visage of death. So that means we have a game whose central conflict ranges from man versus environment, man versus society, man versus man, and man versus existence. The part of the game that focus on the existentialist themes are rather relegated to the final fourth of the title. You witness Sam developing as a character as you and him work to connect all of America into the network. You meet characters like Fragile, Mama, Heartman, and Conan O'Brien. He develops a sense of humanity through the larger cast as his own social network grows, and in doing so builds up his own drive and willingness to exist, all coinciding with their connection to America and the internet. And we help them grow by surviving the wilderness and supporting their direct and oftentimes dire needs. Sam is supporting those in their own stranded cities, eventually where everyone ends up living through the social network we've developed. It allows us to value the life we've played and the one that Sam's achieves. One could say, much like with Dark Souls, abandoning our playthrough is Sam abandoning the network and falling into isolation, an ultimate game over, where by not getting to the other coast of America, the extinction event takes place. When you confront Amelie, she offers to watch extinction play out or to let Sam continue on with his life and all of life along with it. Ultimately, the real driving force of the plot is fundamental truths of the lived condition, which nicely ties into the fundamental actions of the game that it is centered on: movement and connection. Moving and learning to walk is one of our biggest developmental milestones, along with communication for babies. Something stolen from the bridge babies that occupy the plot relegated to equipment, unable to develop, nor are they to have parents. To facilitate healthy growth, affection and connection must be offered, and we learn that Sam was a bridge baby himself only after we start the game navigating to Amelie and to end the game with a physical sign of affection to her.
I'm here for you. Always.
Sam experiences personhood through love at the final scene of the game. He breaks this non-existence for his own BB as well, with him finally connecting to Louise. The cycle of love, life, and physicality starts, finally touching their hands together in the very end. One can easily say that the plot of Death Stranding is essentially watching someone take part of the fundamentals of human development, choose not to die only through expressing our ability to grow, to experience love, the social love that we all need as people. Ultimately, Sam returns back to the living, and Amelie, the extinction entity, is completely isolated and alone. As such, fulfilling their roles as representations of life and death. By no means is this video meant to comprehensively discuss all the aspects brought into this game. That would take hours upon hours to do. What I do think this writing captures is the essence and relevance of the title. It just so happened that Death Stranding also became his title to reflect on game design along with his own approach to video games. It's rather easy to forget with the passage of time how Kojima called the game a whole new genre, a Strand game, which didn't help new players approach it, along with those dissatisfied with Metal Gear Solid 5, or with players attuned to the medium, which, for the realm of AAA games and for Sony blockbusters, it definitely does feel like a new genre, but we also have titles like Journey, Ico, or even Dark Souls. I mean, like, come on, we all saw Ending E of Automata now. This title showcases players connecting to others in-game or with multiplayers that support each other, leaving messages and affecting the world of the single-player experience. And I think it's important to kind of ask ourselves, what is a Strand game in Kojima's words? Look no further than the quote that introduces us to the world of Death Stranding. From Abe's short story, The Rope. The rope, along with the stick, are two of mankind's oldest tools. The stick to keep the bad away, the rope to keep the good toward us. Wherever there were people, there were the rope and the stick. Metal Gear Solid was always going to be more about the stick. It's about keeping the bad away, about abrasion. Death Stranding is finally about the rope. Allusions to the rope is everywhere in the game, from the name of it to begin with, Death Stranding. Sam border bridges, actual literal physical rope in the game that you have to use. The chiral network, which again, what is a network? It's a force that puts things together. One of the last missions that we have to carry out is going from the west coast all the way back to the east coast, and what's available to us? Only the structures from other online players. And you connect to them further through building bridge links, which is again another way of connecting people. It's a link. In my own playthrough, getting from the west coast back to the east coast without the tools that we made for ourselves, I relied heavily on the tools that was given to me. And when you're in your liminal space, you can swim to other players' bodies to further your connection to them. It ensures our own safety. When you finally connect a new location into the online network, you gain access to other players' structures. You can suddenly use their ladders or zip lines. You can follow paths and footsteps placed by them. You even get notifications when they send you resources for materials. You yourself also get notifications of players liking and using your own structures. It certainly captures that feeling of online connection, where we are constantly alerted to others, but we're never physically there with them. We are always alone together with them. It's no shock that 1 year later, many players experience COVID in isolation themselves. It's almost a perfect allusion to the experience, as many players at the time has shown, especially if you do a little Google search for it. As social creatures, we depend on others in a social context for emotional, social support, and now forced to be something disconnected. I remember distinctly how going back to college after restrictions were lifted, how schools and staff kind of talked about how things were a lot better before COVID. How yearly events, how clubs had to shut down and seemingly never really return. I myself never had a college life outside of the impact of shutdowns. I've only ever knew college post-COVID. And what Kojima captured in Death Stranding is, well, pretty relatable. It's probably the most unfortunate example of Kojima predicting something, I would say. There's also something inherently compelling about the idea of watching Kojima with this game. Someone who has spent so much of his life, his time building games about fighting, about violence, and suddenly being able to focus on the rope, about the side of life that we don't dramatize or glamorize, especially within my Floridian framework. Or, in other words, in an American framework, where individualism has stranded us from our own neighbors and our own fellow Americans, our community. This video clearly isn't a plot summary, but the plot is centered on a coalition within Bridges, the last remaining form of an American government trying to reestablish itself, which is only done through the network, by creating strands, by building up a rope of social connections. Everything about this game is built into that rope vision. It's clear that Kojima has taken his chance to rewire and reassess his creation process. I want games and narratives that feel like passion projects. When I'm playing games, I want to think about the people and the humanity put into it. I want to feel their human connection through the art that they create for me to enjoy. That's what art is all about. I want to feel the emotions that the actors on screen were conveying. I want to feel the joy or the frustration that coders felt trying to get Sam's model right as he trips and almost falls. I want to be reminded about the human nature of life, of creating, of play. I want to play more games that focus on connection, and everything follows suit to this design philosophy of the rope. It naturally explores what is left out of the norm. A Strand game is a rope game, a game of connection, which we thankfully have and continue to get from arguably The Sims, Animal Crossing, the aforementioned Ico or Journey, or with Tom. I love that Sony finally has its own IP like this at the very least. It might not be as original as Kojima said way back then. Death Stranding is certainly not the first game of his genre. Regardless though, this isn't a knock on it, but rather further extension of what Death Stranding is. A massive and impressive game that does exemplify and use these methods of play and interaction to support the gameplay and narrative elements presented in it. If there is one reason why Kojima continuously makes titles that stand the test of time to the point of Kojima predicted this being a common occurrence online, it's this. Kojima seeks to understand and explore the world around us. From a post-nuclear world to the overwhelming impact of the internet and AI, to America colonialism in the modern world, or to Death Stranding's direct theme of social isolation within a broken country we call America. The Metal Gear series, as well as Death Stranding, both are more than political and social observations. They are ultimately human stories that give these games internal relevance to our lived conditions. Solid Snake navigates modern capitalistic war and achieves a life with love beyond it. Raiden overcomes his loss of identity and manipulation done through AI, only through connecting with others in his physical reality and through accepting himself. Sam Porter Bridges grows in his own hostile conditions as well. Everyone in Death Stranding is alone, many distrustful, all talking through screens or projections of them. And through his physical presence and being, he breaks down their barriers and his own. Kojima isn't simply sharing his observations of our geopolitical conditions, rather than exploring how we can survive through our own ever-changing world.
The paths we walk become roads, Sam. See the tracks you left behind? They tell a story. If you were a spy on a mission, you'd have failed. But you're not. So be proud of those tracks. They're proof that you exist.
Thank you for watching, and subscribe if you haven't yet. Later.
I brought you a metaphor.